Hello, my name's Melissa, and I'm going to be sharing with you about my 7 visits that have taken course over the semester. I chose to visit my grandfather's pond near Jackson, Nebraska. It's about an hour and a half north of Omaha, and we'll just start out by summarizing the visits. The first couple of visits, the weather was beautiful. The pond is, you know, it's a fairly large pond. There are 2 docks on each side of it, and then around the center, my grandpa built. He actually built a cabin, which has a wraparound deck, and then there's also a shelter house with a barbecue pit. There's also a fire pit and several trees laid all around the pond. The first few visits, I really just sat along the edge of the water, and I was able to focus on the sounds and the sights and the colors. At this time, it was mid-September, and the weather was still warm. There was, it was very breezy. The colors around me were, the trees were still green, the grass was green. You could tell that fall was approaching, but everything had still a green color. The water was temperate. It wasn't too cold. You could stick your feet in. It felt really nice. I just remember, vivid sounds like I could hear the tree leaves, swaying in the breeze. There was also a windmill off in the distance you could hear it creaking and squeaking, with the wind. In terms of wildlife, I was able to see several geese, deer. I was also able to see on one of my visits, I walked up towards a stream that fed the pond, and I was able to see a beaver dam. I did not see a beaver, but I was able to see, the wood pile that it had created, which is pretty neat if you've never seen one of those. I was also, as time went on and I continued with my visits, I saw things such as, the changing of the leaves. I was able to visualize that. I was able to come back every few weeks, and by the last visit, the trees had changed colors. They were now bright yellows, oranges, and reds. The grass was no longer that green color. It was a brownish, green. The water in the pond had kind of a algae look to it, which is common for the pond towards the end of the summer and in the fall. The water gets kind of dingy, and it was apparent that the weather was changing. In terms of pollution, there wasn't any pollution that I noticed visibly, but after I watched carbonation, it made me aware of what could happen to this place in terms of, destruction. There is a landfill and an ethanol plant nearby, and, it made me think, what if some of this pollution gets to the fresh water that feeds the pond? Will it kill the fish that are in there? Will it harm the wildlife that are there? From the book Green Discipleship, I learned that God intended for us to cultivate creation, not destroy it, and I think that means that we are to respect creation and what He created, and not we are to use the resources that God has provided to us, but in a respectful manner. In chapter 11 of Green Discipleship, we are called to be neighbors to non-human creation. Just like in the parable of the Good Samaritan, we are called to love thy neighbor. I take that also as being our neighbor being that of creation. Also, Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict speak of respect and responsibility. With that being said, I also think they are talking about the responsibility to the environment. I feel that we are to respect all of creation, and with the pond, I have a deep connection, and I respect the environment and the surroundings because the pond has given me so many memories that I think we should give back to the environment in that way. With that being said, the pond has given me so many memories that I will keep with me for the rest of my life. My family has held weddings, 4th of July, family reunions, cookouts there for all of I can remember, and many of my most cherished memories take place there. I think that we as a culture get so caught up in our busy lives that we forget to see what is around us, and we forget to really appreciate the beauty of nature that is right outside our door. I think people need to stop and take the time to enjoy the world around them. After watching Carbonation, it is clear that the climate change is a real problem that is being caused by us humans, and in order for there to be change, we must use good business sense and use renewable energy sources. And for that to happen, we need a collective, world participation. Sorry. And from a theological perspective, this change can be made. It is not an impossible feat. If, like Pope Benedict says, if you want to cultivate peace, protect creation, those are words that everyone should live by. And all generations should join in the fight against environmental destruction. And I think it can be done in a peaceful manner if we all, choose to do so. And I go back to example in class, like the refugees that have, fled their countries due to scarce water resources. They have no choice. But we here in the United States, we're fortunate enough to have these resources at hand, and I don't think we should take them for granted any longer. I think something needs to be done on our part so that we can all live, and prosper in this environment for which we call home.